the one phrase I hate the most is fake it till you make it. I think that is such a load of fucking horseshit that people should completely ignore that because it's not true.
The goal isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will.
You're listening to Perspective, a podcast for wedding creatives where we sit down, often with a special guest, and talk about our many years of experience in the wedding industry. Joining us today from over the web is Cole Roberts, famed for his photography business Nordica, Cola, his online print shop, and of course, Way Up North, one of Europe's biggest wedding photography conferences. We'll be bending Cole's ear on all of his hustles. However, the main purpose of this episode is to discuss the business of wedding photography. It's probably the case that most of you listening are in love with photography and videography as a craft, perhaps even as an outlet for your creativity. However, who among you can say that you have an equal love and respect for the business side of your business? If you're feeling disconnected from the inner workings of your brand, then this episode will help you gain perspective and allow you to get to grips with the fundamentals of maintaining and even growing a successful business. As always, this episode is sponsored by With Jack, but I will get onto that a little bit later in the show as a pre-recorded message. In the meantime, though, what are we drinking, Greg?
In the Cinemate office here, we are drinking some workshop coffee, and it's the Maharembe Espresso.
Yes.
Although we brewed it up on the Chemex, but it's tasting lovely.
Yeah.
So Cole, what are you drinking over in Sweden?
I didn't prepare for this. I just have my
a glass of water.
I have my redneck Stanley thermos with me, and just like some morning coffee that I made hours ago that I just kind of carry around with me throughout the day. I should have got something a little more exotic. You guys sound pretty fancy.
We like to try and drink something different if we can.
Yeah, we do.
So is it just your standard everyday coffee you've got?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I got a Chemex too. I try to get a little fancy now and again, but when I get up in the morning, make the coffee, deal with the kids as quick as possible, and then throw a bunch of coffee in my thermos and hit the road.
Yeah, I feel like that extra hit of coffee is needed after going through the whole getting the kids ready rigmarole, because it can be quite stressful.
Yeah. I guess every home's different.
I was gonna say you sound like you've got it down to a T at this point. That there was no hesitation in your voice there.
Well, I love that part of the day, actually. I know it's not for every parent, for sure, and as I said, every family's different. But in the morning, I love that time, especially at this age, because I know that it goes by quick, and they're old before you know it, and they're not going to want to cuddle in the morning and do all that kid stuff. So I kind of savor these days right now, to be honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What age are your kids at the moment? I know you mentioned one of them was 4.
I got 2 girls. One is 4 and the other is 6. And then I got a little fella who was born last July. So what is he, 8 months or so?
Awesome. So that is perfect cuddling territory.
Sure.
Yeah, we've been checking out all of your Iceland roadie workshops and all the content that's coming out there. That looks sweet as always. Yeah,
that turned out to be a fun thing. I mean, Mark Bakur and I have done it a few times now, and we have one more plan for May, and then we're retiring the idea in Iceland. We don't want to kind of repeat it too often and become too predictable, but the idea for it turned out to be quite fun, and everyone who's, I think, most people at least who have attended have enjoyed it. It's quite an adventure over there, and workshop or no workshop, I think most people should try to get over to Iceland. It's quite a place. The rumors are true. It's amazing.
Yeah, when you guys invited us out in the first one, it was something that we totally jumped on, because neither of us, I don't think you'd been to Iceland, had you?
Nope, that was our first time.
So it was this was a chance to go and a chance to get to meet you and sort of meet all the people that was coming in the workshop. It was awesome.
Yeah, it was cool that you guys were able to come, and yeah, as I said, it's like a place, made for adventure, I would say. So if you kind of getting out there and exploring, then that's the place to go for sure.
It looked like the one that you just finished just a couple of weeks ago, was it? It looked really sort of crazy wind and a lot heavier snow than what we got.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just last week, and it was the worst weather of the 3 we've done so far, by far. Well, Yeah, I feel like I keep repeating myself to my wife when I get back home for most trips to Iceland when I'm saying, yeah, the weather was the worst I've ever seen. But I actually think last time the wind was the worst I'd ever seen. And that's no exaggeration. If you ask anyone who was there, it was nuts. But like, I think that's all right. Like, I don't know. I barely look at the forecast now before I go on trips there and just kind of expect it to be poor weather. And for the workshops, of course, everyone wants it to be sunny and nice, but I don't think you go to a place like that and, be disappointed if the weather's bad because it's a poor weather kind of place. So yeah, it was a, like, I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, but I'll just say it was so cold that the one model got very sick after being out in the cold for the first spot we stopped. Didn't go over too well. So anyway, am I making everyone down on Iceland here with the weather? It's not that bad.
No, it's lovely. It's lovely. And to be in terms of the weather, we're totally used to that in Scotland. But I can imagine, you had models from, was it Brazil?
Yeah,
the one you guys were at.
Like, they did well.
Oh yeah, they were troopers. I think it's just got to prepare accordingly.
Yeah.
But you just reminded me, like, I did do one elopement there with an awesome couple from Brazil, and warn them, as I always try to do, and say the weather's probably going to be horrible. And they thought they were prepared. And we stopped at the first spot, and it was like a pure ice storm. Like, what it felt like is if you took a handful of nails, little tiny nails, and threw them right up in front of you, and there's a wind machine just kind of blowing them all at you, and then them all hitting your face. And that's kind of what it felt like. So she was just like broken down in tears in the first spot. So it can get ugly, fellas. Go to Mallorca, go to Canary Islands, get a tan. The beer's cheaper.
Well, then you have to deal with the sweat though.
Yeah, I don't do hot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
If you're like I work with Jakob, and with Nordica and the weddings, usually when it comes down to deciding who does what, he gets the hot places. I'll take the cold ones any day of the week.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I just tend to melt in, hotter climates, and I don't. Is there a way to cope with hotter climates? To acclimatize, is that just the trick? I don't know.
I don't know. I just give in and just accept that I'm going to be a sweaty, gross mess the whole day. And
yeah.
I think you have to. Yeah. So, a lot of our listeners will probably have heard of you through your work as Nordica Photography or through Way Up North. But for the small amount that haven't heard of you, do you want to just introduce yourself a wee bit?
Yeah, sure. Well, my name is Cole Roberts. I'm a Canadian. I live in Sweden now. I'm married to a Swede, so we've been over here for a couple of years. In Canada, I'm from British Columbia, over on the West Coast. Yeah, long story short, I guess, with what's maybe interesting to someone listening is I started working with Jakob Granqvist right out of university. We studied marketing together. I guess it was about 11 or 12 years ago here in Sweden. Yeah, we met each other, and then we went over to Vancouver, and we started Nordica there, which was supposed to sort of be a 1-year experiment. And that was in, what year was that? 2009, 2010.
Right.
So we started it, and, we were naive and thought we were better than we were. And we just kind of were like, yeah, we're photographers now. And decided to kind of pursue weddings from day one, which was a really strange thing, in retrospect, but it worked out pretty well. And after the first year, we were like, okay, let's do it another year. And we kept going, and Nordica kind of grew and became our little baby, and has afforded us a lot of good things over the years, like traveling the world and, a career in photography. So that's sort of been like the stable part of our working relationship together. And then right at the end of 2014, we kind of came up with the idea to start an event for wedding photographers here in Sweden. So we started Way Up North, and the first event was October 2015.
Right.
And that's grown to be quite a thing. Like it's a lot of work and a lot of hours, but it's very rewarding. And I think we've done 8 or 9 Way Up North events now, which I don't know what we're thinking sometimes, but it's fun, and we like what it's become. So we have Nordica and Way Up North, and then a year ago we started another project called Kolla. And long story short, with that, we're selling photography prints, not only our own. Ours are in the mix, but it's definitely not only ours. Mm-hmm. So that kind of came about in a natural way. I would say, like, Jakob it was his idea in the beginning, to be honest. He got a cabin in Finland, and as he was furnishing it, his walls, he's like couldn't figure out what he wanted to put on his walls. And when he started looking around at what was available, what he was noticing was two things. There was like the cheap posters, which are fine and they're nice, and you can go to like Desenio and get awesome cheap posters. But that wasn't for him. And then within photography, if you wanted to get some art, it oftentimes was super expensive, way out of his budget. And so like we kind of just bridged those two things and came up with Kola, and that's been a bit of an adventure already. I mean, we've only been doing it a year and a half, but we have certainly learned a lot. So those three things keep us busy.
Yeah, can imagine.
I actually can't imagine. 3 businesses? Are you kidding me? You have the hustle under control. Well, let's talk a little bit about Way Up North then. First, obviously, we'll talk about your other ventures a little bit more in detail a little bit later on. But for people who don't know what Way Up North is, what is it?
Well, it's an event for wedding photographers. That's the short answer. But I guess more specifically, what we tried to do when we came up with Way Up North is like we're interested in TED Talks. I'm sure lots of people are. Oh,
I love it.
And the premise of Way Up North is along those lines. It's a keynote presentation structure. Usually 2 days. Usually there's 10 to 12 presenters. So if you can imagine going into like maybe a theater environment, which is kind of a venue that we like to do. Imagine going into a big old theater with a huge screen, and then putting the spotlight on the presenter. And the presenter, needs to be on their toes. And if you can imagine sitting there, you're going to listen to someone who's hopefully going to feel the pressure of presenting. I mean, we try to have high pressure presentation environments on purpose because and there's a good reason I think for that, because we want presenters to be on their toes and come in not winging it. I mean, you can feel when a presenter is like underprepared and they almost try to talk themselves into sounding prepared. Like maybe go in circles or maybe beg for a Q&A session, because that's quite easy to handle. But what we try to do is make sure everyone's super prepared. And when they're prepared, they're going to give it, a thoughtful presentation and hopefully the best stuff. So that's like the general premise of it. Of course, there's sponsors there and the event doesn't happen without them. And then to conclude it all, we have a pretty good party that's oftentimes sponsored by Wooden Banana and is definitely a mess every time. So
they're
it's a fun event,
aren't they?
Yeah. Well, Mark Bakura, he sponsored the first one in Rome, and I think a light bulb went off in his head that like, oh yeah, this is good. And so he just pretty much just said each event he wants Wooden Banana to sponsor the party, and I think it's a good idea because I don't know, like last week when we were speaking about Rody a little bit, and last week there was a really nice guy from Switzerland there, and he compared it to like kind of like a boutique. He compared Way Up North to like a boutique indie band or something like that. That kind of doesn't really give a shit and just does whatever. And I actually do think that Way Up North is a little bit like that. Like I don't know. I think about all the other events that are out there, and there's lots for wedding photographers, and that's kind of a luxury being in this industry. Is there are options, and hopefully people go to them all. But like, I think we're finding our niche in like the keynote style event, and not wavering too far from that, and not really caring what people think about the event, which sounds really strange because you want everyone to love it and want everyone to care about it. But I don't know, Jakob and I, when we're coming up with a presenter lineup and the venues and the locations, we're really selfish, like totally selfish. And we're like, well, who's interesting to us? Let's create a lineup around that. And, hopefully people will like it.
Yeah. So you started off with some smaller workshops as Nordica, is that right?
Yeah, that started a long time ago. Yeah. When did we do the first one? In 2011, we did our first workshop with Nordica.
So what do you feel the difference is between small group workshops and the conference style that Way Up North has become?
Well, they're completely different. I mean, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
To compare them, I guess, like I think the biggest benefit of going to a large event, whether it's Way Up North or any of the other ones, like large event means a lot of people. And sure, you're going to learn a lot from individuals when you listen to to them do a keynote presentation, for sure. You're going to learn lots. However, like, you're going to be exposed to a lot more people. And I think that's the greatest takeaway from events like this, is the amount of people you can shake hands with and have a beer with and, shoot the shit with. Like, when I think about Cola, for example, when we started Cola, we funded it out of our own pocket, and then we realized, okay, we need more funding to fund sales. So we did an equity crowdfunding campaign, which we were successful. We reached 200% of our goal. But I bring that up because, when we started like marketing the campaign, the first thing we did is we went to every single person we had networked with over the past 10 years, like literally every person we knew, and said, will you fund the campaign? So those people that we kind of networked with over the last 10 years or so, kind of like, they helped us get Cola off the ground in a sense. So I bring that up because, like, when you think about an event like Way Up North or the other ones that are out there, like, the network that you create at those events, that's the most important takeaway. So I don't know, that was a long-winded answer. And if you can compare it to a smaller workshop like Roadie or any of the ones that we've done with Nordica, like, the difference is just simply being a little bit more practical, hands-on, and you're going to cater the attention to the individual a little bit more. So like, if you have a workshop with 10 people, I mean, you're going to interact with that one person a lot more than you would if you're in a theater with 400 people. That's just like common sense. So pros and cons with both. I like the big show a lot better, personally.
Yeah. Talking about the sort of network and community that you said sort of helped crowdfund that, I got involved in that not even having met you at that point. I just knew.
So I work for you then.
Yeah.
Because that's how we look at it.
I got involved at like the lowest level I could, but I knew of you through sort of Mark talking about you and your photography work, and I was just like, I want to help this as little as I can, just because I thought it was a good venture that you were starting.
Well, it's good to hear, and thank you for funding it. And Jesus, I really do think that we work for the people who invested. I do. Like, my entrepreneurial hero is Gary Vaynerchuk, which is no secret, and a lot of people love him. And one thing that he always says is, like, he works for his employees, not the other way around. So I kind of flip that into our situation with Cola, and I do feel like we work for the shareholders, and we need to make it work. So.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, if it makes you feel better, Cole, I didn't invest early on, so you're not working for me. Okay, so you can show up to work late. I'm not gonna mind. Just to take some added pressure off.
But rounding out sort of a wee bit about Way Up North, this episode's coming out on next Tuesday, so obviously the events in Cannes is in full swing. Yeah. Is there any way? I know you sell online tickets. Is there any way that anybody listening to this can watch that after the fact?
Well, if this comes out on the morning of day one, then sadly no.
Right, okay.
Yeah, but as you mentioned, we are doing we're adding an online element to this event, and it's a lot of work, friends. Tell you that. But we did like, where that kind of came from was when was it? February 2018. We did a version of Way Up North called 1.2.0. We did it in Stockholm, and we had a small studio audience, and then a huge for us, online audience. So it was like a full-on online event, and we learned a lot from that. And didn't do it in Cologne, which was the follow-up event. But for Con, we were like, Jakob's really funny this way. He's like, yeah, let's just do it. Like, he's a real quiet guy, but then when he's like when he's like sold on something, it's like, we're doing it, and it's like, okay, now we got to do it. So we just kind of added that to Con a little bit after the fact, but it's happening.
Cool. Well, I look forward to seeing how it goes, and then hopefully it's available at future ones as well.
Yeah, I wish I could say it would be available online at everyone, but it's not that simple. Like, it's not like we're outsourcing all of it. I mean, we do not know.
And it makes sense for it to be sort of limited to the people that sort of signed up before it, rather than sort of long term. I think,
Hopefully, everyone can invest in the next Way Up North, but
yes, that'll be a good one.
Yes, let's move on a little bit, because I want to talk to you about you as a photographer, and obviously we spoke to Mark Bakura just before the podcast, and he mentioned that you don't often like to talk about yourself.
Yeah, he's right.
You're more of a business person. So how did you start as a photographer?
Well, it's funny enough, well, maybe it's not that funny, but I guess I got my start in photography because I was interested in online marketing, which is what I studied.
Mm-hmm.
So to kind of go way back to 2008, I guess it was, that was when Jakob and I finished university. And
yep.
I'll try to give you the short version here. Like, out of university, Jakob, he went to Stockholm, got a good job, started doing his thing. He started photo blogging, kind of did that. And then over in Vancouver, which is where I was living, I kind of look at it like I was like overeducated, but underqualified for a real job. So I was doing a lot of internships, and I was really interested in social media at that time. Like, it was like fresh out of the womb. It was all very new, and search engine marketing. That was also something I was really interested in. Like, I was like, okay, how are these businesses getting people to their website? If you go Google for a food truck in LA, like, how is that happening that they're being found? So I actually looked at photography as like my excuse to learn how to do search engine marketing. So I started a photo blog, and I was doing really like random stuff. Like, I was like testing out, how can I get this bridge in New Westminster, which is an area in Vancouver? Like, how can I get that to rank high in Google? So I'd go and take pictures of it and blog it. And that was what I was interested in.
Right.
But then at the same time, I was working at a lot of restaurants in Vancouver. They call Vancouver Hollywood North because like there's a ton of movies that get filmed there.
Yeah.
And like the cliche is you work in the hospitality industry as you're trying to make it as an actor or actress. So I was around all these people, and they all wanted new headshots constantly. So I was like, cool, I just made $100 and I would do headshots. So yeah, I was just kind of like a Forrest Gumping my way along with photography in the beginning. Like, I wasn't taking any courses. I wasn't interested in taking courses. I wasn't interested in learning Lightroom, Photoshop, none of that. I was just like, all right, cool. Let's take some cool pictures and put it online, see what happens. So I guess that was like the very beginning. But like, my mom is a photographer. She has been for a long, long time. And in my hometown, one of their businesses was a framing studio, and they had a print lab as well. So reluctantly, I was around it as a kid growing up, and kind of got exposed to the world of photography there too. But you know, to be honest, at that time, I didn't know what I was doing at all. Like, I remember developing film in the lab and literally having no clue what I was doing. I was just like running through rolls of film and being like, oh, cool, that worked out. So there's that background too.
Yeah. Cool. Well, obviously, the reason I asked that, and it was kind of because you kind of talked about yourself a little bit earlier, but you mentioned going straight into weddings. Now, when you said that, I was kind of taken aback a little bit, because usually what tends to happen is that weddings kind of, as someone who takes photographs, your friend asks you to do a wedding, and that's kind of the introduction that I think most of us have. But you said you went straight into weddings. So how did that happen?
Well, I guess to try to give you like an interesting answer, or however you want to say, like, to say we went straight into weddings would be the best way to answer that. Is just like, for our business, we went straight into weddings. So like, I remember Jakob and we decided, okay, let's spend a year and see what we can come up with photography wise. And he came over. It was November 2009, and we just came up with a logo. We just came up with a name, and we're like, all right, now what? Okay, let's make it a wedding photography business. And the reason why we did that is we needed to find a way to work together and have kind of like a direction to go. So at the time, weddings was so off the beaten path of our interests, and like, it just didn't make sense. But in the randomness, it felt like a good move. It was like two straight dudes working together, doing weddings in Vancouver, like, no experience, let's do it. They just didn't really make a lot of sense, but we needed to give ourselves like some direction, and then give ourselves like some purpose behind working together. So we're like, all right, well, let's try to make it a wedding photography business. But that's like one piece of the puzzle, I guess, because really what we were doing to pay the bills is like anything. Like, we were doing so much different photography that, like, you think about it, we did it. We didn't do porn, but everything else we were like totally all over it. So yeah, I'm not going to go on and on about the examples, but I'll just say in short, we paid the bills by doing anything, but we're giving ourselves focus with Nordica by trying to make it a wedding photography business. Why? I have no idea. But like, I look back on it, I'm like, I don't know what we were thinking, because, you know, I don't even think I'd been to a wedding. And you know, the first wedding I did, that I didn't know what I was doing. I remember leaving the wedding because I was like, you know, filling my card, and I would go home and have a beer and then come back and fill up the card again, go home and have a beer. And like, it was like a wedding in my hometown, and that couple got divorced like right away. Like, I think within days of the wedding. I don't even know if and so like they never even saw the photos. And that was like my first crack at a wedding, and that was in 2008. So
that was a good one to practice on then.
Oh man, I was doing it all wrong, like for sure. But you know, in hindsight, I was just happy to be there, and it was like, yeah, this is cool. This is something new. So yeah, I don't I don't know. I do look back at how naive we were when we started, and you know, what can you do but have a laugh? I mean, I think that the one phrase I hate the most is "fake it till you make it." I think that is such a load of fucking horseshit that people should completely ignore that, because it's not true. And in our case, you know, sure, you could say that we were faking it till we make it, but really we were just trying to make it work. Like we thought we were doing the right things, and we weren't thinking in our heads like, oh, this is just a big disguise for what we're really doing. No, we were like trying to make it. And so there was nothing fake about that. It was just at the time and the place, and that's what we were doing.
We sort of did that after uni. We tried to do like music videos and any other sort of thing. And we've told our sort of origin story, for want of a better term, before, but we sort of stumbled into the wedding industry and saw a gap, and then we realized, oh, in weddings you know who you're marketing to, and it was a lot easier for us to try and find clients.
Yeah.
So that's how we got into it.
Yeah,
So,
and we're just two guys with cameras as well, but we're just video.
Well, this might not be the popular thing to say, but I do think maybe you'll agree. Like, what year was that for you guys?
2010, I got married.
yeah.
So yeah,
So, like,
just after that.
2007, 2006, 7, 8, especially 2008 was a horrible time to try to like get employed. I mean, businesses were, the financial crisis was happening. Wasn't a good time to like try to get a job. However, coming out of that was the Wild West boom of social media and the boom of entrepreneurs. So like you, like us, just sort of happened to get into the visual arts. And it's cheap to start a photography or video business. It's kind of there's not a lot of barriers to entry.
Yeah.
And at that time, marketing yourself and actually getting attention was so cheap that sure, you were getting hired. Like we were like masters at getting attention in Vancouver. All the dumb stuff we did, it was just like foolproof. Like we saw an IKEA Facebook contest in 2010, and it was simply a tagging contest. That's it. But we hadn't seen other wedding photography businesses do that at that time. So we're like, all right, we'll just copy that and do it. And boom, we got lots of attention. So like, it was an easy time to get attention, and it was an easy time to start a business like wedding photography, or in your case, film.
Yeah.
And ride the wave. But I think the wave is slowly coming to an end, my friends, and the cream will rise to the top, because the heyday of just being able to put up a Facebook post and getting it seen by everybody is gone. So those who are talented to stick around are the ones who are going to stick around. But I think the easy times are behind us.
Yeah. Especially considering that barrier to entry that you mentioned. You know, everyone can get themselves like a high-grade gimbal now, or a great camera that can shoot 4K, or all of these toys essentially that are the tools of our trade essentially. You know, anyone can get access to that. So it's kind of the people who are bold enough to do things a little bit differently who are going to be the ones that kind of push forward.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, different or just really, really good.
True.
Yeah. Getting into the mindset of Nordica photography, I was on the website and I clipped a quote that I quite liked from it. So on it you say, just like good business people, they built a case for what to do with their lives, boiling it down to seeing the world, telling stories, and making people happy. And so Nordica photography was born. I love how simple you've made that. So how did you get to that sort of mindset for the vision of the business?
Yeah, like I would say we grew into that. I mean, it's really tough for anyone, I think, to start a business and have a brand voice that appears to be natural and easy. That is rarely the case where fresh out of the box, everything sounds like complete and natural and fitting. And Nordica certainly was not that. So that was years of figuring out, do we actually like doing this? Do we actually like doing that? And learning what we actually liked, which took a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, when we boiled it down, like there was a guy who my wife worked with at a branding agency in Vancouver, and his job title was storyteller. And I remember he put us through kind of a brand character exercise, and boiled it down to 4 key words that like described Nordica, not us as people, but Nordica. And it was like art. What were the things that Nordica liked? Art, photojournalism, travel, and realness. I think those were the 4 words. That kind of described Nordica's character, and kind of like whipped that around, came up with a sentence, slap it on the website, and boom, there you go. Easy. But as I said, like these things are rarely fresh out of the box.
Yeah.
On point. Like with just kind of like jump around a little bit, like with Cola right now, it's a bit of a grind for us to find or get Cola to develop its own voice and discover its character and values. And one brand that we're looking at a lot as like the gold star is a company out of Sweden called CDLP.
Right.
And like this is really getting sidetracked, but it's interesting maybe to somebody out there. But CDLP, they sell like elegant men's underwear, which is really out there. Yeah. But when we look at everything that they do, every social media post, every newsletter, everything that they do feels like it's just so easy. Like it's just effortlessly on point and perfectly within that brand's voice. And it's frustrating to see that because they just do make it look effortless. And that's usually like what talented brands do. But it's not that easy to get to that point of it being effortless. And I think, with Cola, we're struggling a little bit to get to that point. It's coming along, but it's a bit of a grind. Nordica, it took 8 years to get to a point where things felt real natural and true to ourselves. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I remember during your talk at the Roadie workshop that you were talking about not giving a damn, essentially, what other people think of your work.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And not to sound too pretentious or like an asshole, but really, I don't care at all. And I think Jakob would agree, like, we don't really care what people think of our work. It would be nice if people liked it. I mean, you always want positives. You don't want people trashing it. But, like, just to put it in practical terms, like when we're photographing a wedding, the last thing we want is to be thinking, is there any doubt around me about what I'm going to produce? Like coming from the aunt or coming from bridesmaids or whoever is around you, like, is there doubt in the room? Because if there's that doubt kind of lingering around, it's going to affect your work. So like if in our case, like we just block out everything. We really don't care what people at the wedding think about us. We don't care about like what people online in our peer group are saying about our work. Mm-hmm. Like our output is our output and we're happy with it. We think, we're proud of it. And if people like it, great. If they don't, that's okay too. There's plenty of wedding photographers to go around. So there's something for everyone. And if people don't like our stuff, so be it. That's fine by us.
Yeah. Cool.
That's something that last maybe couple of years, if we are honest, we were maybe sort of looking for some sort of validation from peers in the industry or something. Like not intentionally, but it probably was happening like that.
I think that's like a very natural phase, and I don't want to make us sound like these dudes who just like skipped that phase, because for sure there was like a time when we cared about that. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Probably 2012 if I'm going to like think back to it. And there's no doubt. I think there's very few of these rare unicorns out there in the wedding industry who like legitimately have never cared. Like I think a guy who comes to mind is probably like Nirav Patel, who's out of San Francisco, and he is a rare unicorn. And I'm pretty sure he actually doesn't, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think he cares what people think. And I don't think he's ever cared what people think about his work, because he's just producing what he loves. But for us normal people, sure, there's a phase where you're going to care about it, what people think about your work. Then hopefully you get out of that caring phase and you just like do your own thing.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I'd say we are out of now. We're trying to make sure and focus on that we are happy with our work and our couples are, and that's all that matters to us. It's like
Yeah,
Yep.
I think it just keeps, well, for me anyway, it just keeps me a happier person if I don't care.
Yeah. And also, just recently I was listening to the Ego is the Enemy audiobook by Ryan
Oh yeah, by
Holiday.
Ryan Hall.
Yeah. And it just reaffirmed that mindset. It was like, yeah, just don't try and focus on being the best or the biggest. That's a sort of dangerous route to go down. Like, you want to focus more on making our couples happy, and then that will reap more meaningful rewards, I feel.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree. And I think that's such a good book. Everyone
Yeah.
should read it. And in that book, he really draws the line between like arrogance and confidence, I think. And I think as, entrepreneurs or artists, I think it's like important to be confident. You should think your work is the best, and you should be proud as hell about everything you're doing, but not to get delusional about it and be arrogant. Like,
Yeah.
then you start comparing yourself, and then you go down the path of ego, and ego is the enemy. And so, yeah, good book. Highly recommend everyone read it.
Yeah.
You know what? Another one by him that I highly recommend is The Obstacle is the Way. That
Yeah.
like
Oh, okay.
that actually is the theme for the event next week in Cannes.
All right.
So how we do it with each event is we come up with a theme, whatever it will be. I'm not too sure. Like, The Obstacle is the Way is for Cannes. What other ones have we had? Ideas to action. Like, we just come up with like super short, concise themes, and then we say to whoever we're choosing as being presenters, we're like, interpret that theme however you want, and you have an hour.
Cool.
Then see what happens from that. The theme for Stockholm will be very. I'm not too sure. Oh, I just let the cat out of the bag. The event will be in Stockholm in October. The next one after Cannes. But I guess if people are listening to this, the timing will work out.
Yeah.
But anyway, the theme for that is going to be fuck it.
All right.
So
Nice.
we're really curious how that's going to be interpreted.
Yeah.
With Jack was designed from the ground up and is tailored specifically for creatives. Whether you provide a service like design, development or photography, or offer advice to clients, With Jack is for you. It's focused on creatives. Insurance shouldn't be complicated, so With Jack has made every step easy. You'll deal with one form and talk to one Jack as you sign up, get covered, and move on with your day. With Jack is all about bespoke insurance for creatives. Simple. That doesn't mean more forms or faff, it means less. It's not about endless features and stale service. It's about one solid policy and the personal touch. Bye-bye unnecessary fuss. Hello, creative friendly insurance. Be a confident creative. Obviously, it's always nice to hear how other people got into this business and, you know, their mindset, their perspective, hence why we named the podcast Perspective. But the real reason we wanted you on the podcast was your business acumen, I should say, you know. The title of this podcast is the business of wedding photography. So I kind of want to just dive in a wee bit, if that's right with you.
Nope.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. All good, man. Hit me.
Okay, cool. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about, whether it's way up north or Kola. But let's focus on Nordica for just a little bit. Something that you and Jakob do a little bit differently is the fact that you're a duo. But you don't always shoot together. Is that right? I remember you saying that in the Rudy workshop.
Yeah, almost never actually. Just to be quick about it, like when we started, we did everything together. So that was like 2009, 10, 11, which was, you know, what we felt was right at the time, but looking back was overkill, because literally everything we would do together. And then 2012, we kind of like realized, you know, we don't need to do everything together. And that's when we started doing it individually. I don't remember the last time I did a wedding with him, actually. It's been a really long time. I'd be guessing probably 2016, I think it was. We did one in Bali.
How was that? Just
that particular wedding?
Yeah.
It was awesome. Yeah, that was a fun trip. It was like, it was a long way to go for, you know, one wedding, but we managed to do a workshop when we were there as well.
Oh, cool.
Actually, Terralogical took that workshop. Now that I'm,
All right.
but anyway, yeah, it was fun. Yeah, and we have fun with it. Or we did. Yeah, it's been a real long time since we've done weddings, but I do enjoy doing them with Jakob. He's a super talented photographer, I'll tell you that. And watching him work is really interesting because he's kind of frustrating actually to watch, because he doesn't really do much. He's super quiet. He's not like jumping around. He's just a quiet guy, just like his personality.
Yeah.
And then afterwards, when you get back and you look at the files, and he'll pull out this gem, and it's like, man, where did you even see that? So he's a real talent.
That's cool. I like that. It's funny. I remember when you said that obviously you are a duo, but you never shoot weddings together anymore. I was quite surprised, because obviously Greg and I are a duo, and we shoot everything together. In fact, there's very, very rare occasions that we actually do work separately. So what was the motivator behind doing thing separate? Was it just the fact that he was annoying?
Yeah.
Like I am to Greg?
He's just a fucker. Can't stand it. No, not that at all. No, it honestly, it just felt right. It really did. It was 2012. I remember that vividly, because like at the time we knew that Sweden, I should say, was like in our future. He had a good run in Vancouver, but Stockholm is home for him. He's like got it tattooed on his arm. It's home for him. And my wife is a Swede, so I kind of knew also that like that was our future. Mm-hmm. So to make the transition happen, how we did it was Jakob kind of like came over to Europe for a few trips and got as much work done over here as possible. Mm-hmm. So he was second shooting for people. He was doing weddings with kind of like a very varied budget level, and getting our foot in the door over here, I guess you could say.
Yep.
So at that time, it was just like, okay, you go do that, and I'm going to stick around in Vancouver and do the weddings that were really kind of paying the bills. The budgets over in North America tend to be higher than Europe.
Yeah.
That's a broad assumption, but like in Vancouver at the time, we were really noticing it. So we kind of like just drew the line in the sand and said, okay, we need to like grow this business somehow. And this is one way we can do it, because you can double the bookings, and people will be none the wiser to the final product, because in our case, we more or less do the exact same approach with photography. Personality is totally different, but end product with photography, people are going to have a hard time noticing a difference. So yeah, it was as simple as that, really. Mm-hmm. But I would say like that came after photographing things together for a lot of years, and it was just a natural thing. And I think, I don't want to, speak for you guys, but for photographers especially, I do think that you can only shoot alongside the same person for so long, and then it'll feel natural to kind of gravitate away and do your own thing under the same umbrella, I think.
Cool. Don't say this. Greg's going to leave me. Okay.
No, you should double your bookings.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's a few double bookings in for this year, which is funny. So we actually will. This will be the first year that we do split up.
Yeah, I mean, we've shot separately with the associate team before, but this year we've got a couple where there's 2 full Cinemate bookings in the same day, so we're going to have to shoot with 2 separate teams. So yeah, that'll be fun.
Yeah, that will be fun, because obviously personality-wise we are different, and style-wise, well, because we've shot so much together, we have taken different roles on, so we've mastered our own different skills throughout a wedding. So that would be interesting to kind of make them up and kind of smooth out those hard edges for the skills that we don't have for a wedding. So that would be interesting.
How did you guys find keeping your style similar? Like, I know you say you shoot a lot like each other. So when you started doing separate weddings, how did you keep the style of photography and final product similar to the client? Well,
I think like we like the same thing. We always kind of have with photography. So I mean that you could point to that as being a root of it. But I guess like we were so I'll just spill the beans on one thing that we did. We did a thing which was the equivalent of Groupon. It was called Social Shopper, and so it was a deal of the day site in Vancouver. And at that time in 2010, there was one other photography business who had done a similar deal. So we did a deal that was very cheap, and we gave away high resolution files. We did everything wrong that you shouldn't do. But what happened was we ended up selling 300 of these sessions that needed to be completed within a year, which surprised us, because we were like, kind of like, yeah, it'll be like 20.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden we were slammed, and this went on for a year, and we were doing these sessions on top of weddings, on top of other weird projects that we were photographing. So if you can just imagine, like, we were doing all of these sessions together, we were going into a coffee shop immediately after, sitting at the same computer, culling it together, editing it together, uploading the galleries together. We were doing that on repeat for, 300 of the sessions plus the weddings we were doing and things like that. If you do that on repeat with anybody, like your styles are going to merge. Or like become very similar. So it was really as simple as that. And not really worked individually before we started Nordica, like we didn't know any better, right? It's not like we were second shooting a ton with these amazing artists. We were figuring it out on our own. Mm-hmm. So our approach and how we were doing it at weddings, it grew together. So when we grew apart, I mean, I'm pretty sure I know what he does at weddings, and I'm pretty sure he knows what I do. There isn't a master formula. We just kind of like know what the other guy was doing.
Yeah, I can imagine like that's an intense boot camp of working so close to each other for that length of time. You would get on the same wavelength straight away.
Yeah,
it was the best and the worst thing that happened to us for sure.
That's good. I was gonna say you're still friends after that experience. So
wow, it's amazing. I joke around with him and I joke around with my wife. I'm like, how can you two stand me? Like, it's amazing to me that you guys still put up with me after all these years.
I say the same thing to Greg and my wife as well. Yeah. So what's it like now that you've separated, like running your business from two different countries? Like, is that a technical challenge?
You're in the same country now.
Oh yeah. Sorry,
a good few hours apart.
Yeah, that's never been an obstacle for us, which is really strange. Like even in Vancouver, we live pretty close to each other, 10-minute drive, but I would say we would only see each other when we kind of like had to. Aside from going out for beers, when we would never talk about work, but we were used to working away from each other since we started, so it was never really a big deal. Now it's there's a few more things being exchanged now, but we still know what the other guy is doing and hold each other accountable, and we kind of have systems in place where we always sort of feel like things are moving forward. At least that's what we want to be happening. So we're a unique case. I know that. And to be honest, like there are times when it's pretty frustrating not being able to be in the same room. So, we do force ourselves to have like meetings when we can, because a lot comes of those meetings. And I would not encourage anybody to only work remotely with a business partner. It's better to be in the same room for sure. Like quick little things, being productive, exchanging an idea. It's better to be in the same room for sure. But in our case, it's just how we've done it for a long time now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it obviously works well because there's Way Up North, there's Nordica, and as you mentioned, there's now Cola. And you touched on that was Jakob's sort of brainchild, that one. But what was the inspiration behind the new business Cola?
Well, how can I give a useful answer? It was his idea, but I think we both were on the same page with wanting to start a scalable business. Right. I don't think, how do you say, like we've had our shot with Way Up North to make it with Nordica, not Way Up North. We've had our shot with Nordica to make it like a scalable business model for wedding photography, and we haven't been able to. We've dabbled in a lot of ideas, but I don't think anything's really stuck and worked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Way Up North, that's going to continue until it doesn't. I mean, we really love putting together that event, and it's a lot of fun, and it is so rewarding seeing what happens from it. But we have no ambition to like scale it or, take it to crazy places or try to make it anything that it's not. So we know where that stands. So then we have this like urge to create something scalable that we can grow into something more. And then this idea kind of came up, and we're like, okay, this is it. This is something that we can like see how big we can make it grow. Now that's like easier said than done, because at the same time, I feel like we're like starting fresh, just like we did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And the reason why is like we're in the e-commerce game now, and it's not that easy. Like there's so much that we didn't know before we started Cola, and even now we're for sure learning as we go. But entering an e-commerce business with something that's scalable, it just felt like an exciting idea to us, and we are going to make it work. So your money's in safe hands, man. Yes. We're looking after you, hopefully.
So what was the hardest lesson then in terms of having an e-commerce business?
Well, I don't know if it was a hard lesson per se, but if you look back, like earlier I was saying like how easy it was, 10 years ago to get attention. And that is like a fact. That was the wild west of social media where, it was really easy to get noticed. Everything was organic. You put something out there, someone's going to see it. So I guess naively, we sort of thought you could like SEO your way into having a business, an e-commerce business that works, but that's not the case. I mean, having organic reach is useful. And once in a while, you're going to hit with someone who's like searching for a black and white poster of a bridge and boom, you make a sale. But you got to have a real proper ad campaign within social media ongoing, or you're not going to get sales. At least that's our experience. So that wasn't like a big surprise. And we've budgeted properly to have, those funds to put towards social media ad campaigns. But there's so much to learn within that. It's crazy. Like, this is not like getting hired by a couple planning a destination wedding in Tuscany at all. I mean, it's like you got to segment, you got to know what you're doing, you got to know your frequencies, you got to know, like, it's just like an endless amount of knowledge to learn within e-commerce ad campaigns. So that's for sure the biggest one. And then I guess the other side of the coin is something so obvious that we didn't really like look that hard into it. And that's like simply the product itself. Like we've kind of had an awakening in the past 2 months. We're like, do we fucking love this product? Do we? And then really the answer was no. We were very confident in it, but it's not good. It wasn't good enough. So we've been putting a lot of energy into like perfecting the product, and we're making changes that are happening like now, and we'll actually see them soon. But like absolutely loving your product and being super proud of it was like an obvious thing, but were we being honest with ourselves in the answer?
Interesting. I suppose it's you have to be in this type of business or in your type of business or actually just in any type of business, you have to love what you're selling. It's because I feel like that love for your product has to be kind of to an infectious level that other people kind of see it and they resonate with it and with you, and maybe that's not true, but
it's completely true.
That's how I feel, when I see, ads and stuff. Because a lot of the times ads don't affect me unless it's connected with me on some sort of level that I don't know, and it's usually that someone's, the person who's created it is, on a video or reaching out to me, and I can see that excitement. So it's So what kind of platforms do you like using to engage with potential customers? Is it Facebook, Instagram? Is it
Yep, it's those ones.
Cool. Okay.
Yep.
Simple as that.
Like honestly, it's kind of fun to grow a newsletter, and I think that is what most small businesses should do, is grow a newsletter. It's slow. It's going to be a slow growth, but that is the one thing you'll be able to control. But on the ad front, it's all going towards Instagram and Facebook. And it's kind of comical to see the sales when we're not running campaigns versus when we are running campaigns. It's
really?
Not even like comparable. It's like when we stop doing ads, the sales will stop. And when we continue them, the sales will continue. So, but like you hit on something that is very true, and that's like the sense of nostalgia almost. Like when you just said it yourself, when you see an ad, it needs to connect with you somehow. And I think with Cola, what we were learning is nostalgia is an important component to selling art for people's homes. There needs to be something that they kind of people connect with. So we had that kind of realization when we had literally one train picture that sold like way more than everything else, like 10 times as much as the nearest print we're selling right now. It's this one train picture in Stockholm. And we're like, what's up with that? Like, it's an okay picture, but like, what is it? And then we were like, it's the nostalgia. So we're literally like going all in on that theory. And we started a project called Cola Stockholm. So we're doing, what we've done is we've done a big call out for photos of Stockholm. And that can be from professionals or amateurs, anybody. And we've finally managed, we've been doing this for about 2 months, I think. And we've curated it down to 50 of the best photos we think of Stockholm. And the thinking and the whole purpose of it is we think the nostalgia of loving Stockholm should make for an interesting exhibit. So that's something that we're kind of finalizing right now, and hopefully it works.
Yeah, that's cool. That's actually really cool. I quite like that idea of taking that very specific emotional tag, nostalgia, and applying it directly to your product. In fact, for me, it's probably the most powerful emotion to tap into for me at this very moment, just because of the age of my kids. I buy a lot of products because I want my kids to enjoy the things that I did when I was a kid. So yeah, it's funny.
Well, just look at what Weezer's doing right now. Like you brought up bands and nostalgia. Like they're just like they're covering nostalgic songs right now. And I think they're even doing a tour of cover songs. And I mean that's a random example, but nostalgia works. But damn, is it ever like it's like it's the rare unicorn. If you can figure it out, you're made in the shade. But like, good luck just dialing it in. That in our case with Cola and that train picture. I mean, that's our own conclusion. That must be the reason it's selling is nostalgia, but it's not like, I mean, that was one photo I kind of like, yeah, it's a cool photo, but it's not one I would have predicted would just be fireworks the way it is. So,
so obviously, Cola, like, is there any type of exit strategy baked into the idea of having a product-based business?
Oh, 100%. I mean, we made no secret about that, especially when we were doing the crowdfunding campaign. Like, ultimately, we want to sell this business for sure.
Cool.
I don't know who I was talking. Who was I talking to about this? It was on a podcast. I can't remember, but somebody had asked me, like, isn't that like a strange way to look at running a business? Like, to plan to sell it? And I think it's, in our case, I think it's a perfect motivation for us. And the reason I feel like that is, if we can get our systems dialed in, like to the point where you could literally like hand the keys over to someone who bought it, that means we're making it easier on ourselves with everything that we're doing. Like with the day-to-day running of this business, if we can get it so dialed in that somebody wants to buy it because it's like user-friendly out of the box, that just means that we're making life easy for ourselves during the time that we have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like, I'm pretty sure Jakob would agree with me. Like, this is not going to be our final business. Like, we're going to do more things. And I don't have a specific idea right now at this second. But what I do know is that, like, with what we've done together over the years, something has worked. And like, nothing is perfect. And I don't think what we do is perfect, but things are working. And if we can like keep getting better as entrepreneurs, then we will do more things together. And I'm pretty confident those things are going to work too. So it's kind of an exciting idea to think, okay, we can scale a business and then we can sell it. Why can't we try to do that again, but on a grander scale later on? So we are learning, and what we do is not perfect. We completely know that. But if we can like figure this out and sell Cola eventually, well, that's exciting. And why couldn't we do it again?
Yeah, no, 100%.
It always makes me think of our friend Tim Twynham. I think he's maybe been at way up north before.
Yeah, he's a beauty.
He spoke once about when he's 50 or 60, the young kids at 20, 30 who are getting married aren't going to want to book him because he's not going to be cool, or he can't do weddings forever.
He's
so
preaching.
You've got to have some sort of strategy there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm already feel like I'm too old to do this. Like, like wedding photography, that is, and I'm going to ride the wave, and I do enjoy it, especially elopements. I particularly like those. But in 3 years, I'm going to be 40, and I highly doubt I'll, be doing weddings. I don't know. It's tough to say, but Tim's right. Like, why would a couple who is 22 hire someone like twice their age or whatever when they have someone who they can really identify with their own age, who's probably just as talented? It's kind of a no-brainer. It's pretty discouraging, eh? We're like talking about, hey, here's how to start your wedding photography business. And like, I'm like, fuck, I'm done.
I mean, don't sell yourself too short, Cole, because obviously if you like doing elopements, you're battling the weather, you're the rain, the snow, like that takes a toll on your skin, on your appearance. So you might not look 40 when you're selling yourself as this elopement photographer. So,
Well, I don't even know if there's a picture of Jakob and I on the website. So maybe we'll just hire some young buck and he can like take over. Young buck or young lass.
They can change their name to Cole.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, we're not over the hill yet. We are booking weddings. And like I just did one a few weeks ago in Palm Springs, which was like one of my favorites I've ever done. And we have a lot booked this year. So I don't want to like sound like we're drifting into the sunset at all. And, you know, when we're at a wedding, we know what our responsibility is at that wedding. Yeah. So it's like, I don't want to sound too laissez-faire about all this.
Yeah. It's just, as Tim says, in the future, you've got to realize that eventually at some point in the future.
Oh yeah, like I've fully accepted that. I'm not even kidding myself that I'll be doing this in 10 years. But why would you? I don't know. Like, I think when I think about what I would have told myself 10 years ago, it would have been have fun with it, but don't think this is your career, like at all. It'll temporarily be something that, you know, will help you pay the bills and get amazing experiences, and you will get self-fulfillment out of it. But I would never kid myself into thinking that people can be a wedding photographer for their whole career. And the reason I say that is there are so few who actually do it. Like, I mean, I've been pretty lucky to meet a lot of people with Way Up North and just being in the industry in general. And like, there are I can think of maybe 3 people who are over 45 and still balling as wedding photographers. And like, we're talking like Jose Villa. And how many people out there can be Jose Villa? Not many. Right. Nope. Ryan Branizer in New York is another one. He's all time though, like all time. So he can pull it off, but like there are very few who can.
So we've mentioned a lot of time that you and Jakob stay far apart and you've got 3 businesses going in this time. So how do you make, and you said like before, it just works instinctively because you've worked together for so long. Is there any sort of apps or processes that you use for communication or just sort of making things run smoothly?
Yeah, even like account software or, you know, anything at the back end of a business that people maybe would struggle with.
The 2 apps that come to mind for us are Slack and Basecamp. Slack was just a lifesaver when that came out. I mean, we were, you know, doing what most people were doing and like emailing back and forth, little things. So our inbox was just like chaos. So Slack was just a lifesaver.
Yeah.
And it's a Canadian company based in Vancouver. So everyone should support Canadian companies. And Basecamp, I mean, we use Basecamp, but we also used Trello before, and that was really solid.
Yep.
And basically, if you're working with somebody else, you need to try to hold that person accountable, and having like a list of to-dos is one easy way to do that. Yeah. So that's how we use Basecamp. That's like between me and him, those are the 2 main things. For my own sake, with things I don't want to bug Jakob with, like I use Daylight, another Canadian company, important. And Daylight has like, I've really enjoyed using Daylight over the years. So like, for example, if I get this happened actually the other day, I get an email. If the person has emailed us before, I can see right away in Daylight that they have. And in this example, it was an inquiry from the Philippines, and they had acquired in 2013. So when I replied, I would pretended I had remembered and be like, oh, damn, it's good to hear from you again. Like, but really, so Daylight is a good one. It's expensive. Yeah. It's not for everyone. I think you can only use it on a Mac. But I like using that one.
Yeah.
Just to be able to do that alone would be worth a good price tag.
Yeah.
Oh man, I've done that many times with Daylight, and it's fooling people, but it works.
I'm a big fan of Trello. That's what I like to use here. When Slack came out, like I like to think of myself as an early adopter with software and stuff. And when that came out, I was straight on it. I was like, oh, this seems brilliant. But I couldn't really get it to work between us because we're in the same office. We're sitting right next to each other.
Yeah, you don't need that, man.
So I was like, oh, I want to use this, but there's no need to.
If I wasn't working with Jakob, I think like I would look into Slack and try to set up like a community of people I could network with. So what, like one example I think of is there's a guy in LA. His name is Michael Antonia. He's the Flashdance DJ. Yeah. So he's in LA and he kind of has like a posse of talent around him. So he's the DJ. He's also got an event rental business for like nice tables and chairs and things like that.
Right.
The video guy in the crew is Shark Pig.
Oh yeah.
Smile Booth is the photo booth. Like you go down the list of every single kind of like vendor who could kind of have a touch point with planning a wedding, and they've got a crew, this like motley crew of talent. Like that is something I would do and set up a Slack channel with that motley crew. If I was like focusing on a local market like Glasgow or Edinburgh or something like that, have that crew of talent that you could like bounce ideas or referrals around with and do it on a Slack channel. Like Slack is like, I think it's good to step away from Facebook. And maybe you could do this on Facebook. I don't know. You probably could just set up a group. But something about Slack and being disconnected from ads and all the noise is one of the reasons I like it.
That's true. In fact, Greg and I were having this conversation the other day about how you just, like Facebook groups, you just thinking about it makes you just not want to be attached to Facebook. There are hundreds of them. It's just too much.
About whether we should have a group for the podcast, and I was like, personally, I wouldn't want to join another group. So I don't want to create one for this because I don't want people to feel they have to join another Facebook group.
Yeah.
But, well, we kind of like we spoke about Roadie Workshop a little bit earlier, and each of those people who came to that workshop, I'm like super grateful. Like I'm glad to have met them, and I will see almost all of them again. And we're talking like in total 30 people. And the natural thing for everyone to do after that workshop was set up a Facebook group. And I don't even think I'm in it because like I just can't fucking handle another Facebook group. And like that's no disrespect to the people because I am grateful to everyone who took the workshop, but I don't need Facebook, man. Like I don't need another group. I don't even know if I'm in the Nordica group anymore. Like so yeah, I don't know. It just feels like noise to me. I wouldn't use Facebook unless if I didn't have a business, I wouldn't be on Facebook. It's like as simple as that.
What about Instagram?
Yeah, that's fun. I mean, it's more of a business tool for sure. So the same thing applies. If I didn't have a business, I probably wouldn't be on it. Yeah. I do have a personal account, but I barely I don't even put text in my photos when I post, which is like so seldom. It's like every month I might throw up a picture. So yeah, I don't know. I get it. Like I am very aware of how important these tools are. Totally aware. But for me personally, I just feel like it's noise. I'd rather go light a fire in the woods than sit and stare at Instagram.
Yeah, I feel like I'm getting to that in fact, I feel like in general, Instagram and Facebook, I feel like I'm already there, but I don't want to be what's that thing when you feel like you're missing out? FOMO. I feel FOMO, or like I should have these things, mastered to a T, and I don't know.
Well, one thing you can do, or not do, but one thing I've done with my Facebook account is I've unfollowed everybody, like literally everybody, and that reduces the noise and it reduces the FOMO significantly.
Yeah,
I know what I'll do. I'm gonna create a Facebook group for all the people who don't want to be in Facebook groups, so they can delete all the others and then just come and join this one.
Inception, man.
So before we start sort of wrapping up, because we've kept you for probably long enough.
Oh yeah.
You've hit us with at least one good book recommendation already. Is there any more that you would suggest people go and seek out?
Well, I guess this is a business podcast, so we'll keep it on point there. Probably any book by Marty Neumeier. It's like I make no secret that I love his books. He's an American author and he writes about branding. And he's got 4 books. Buy all 4 of them. And the beautiful thing about these books is they're small enough you can just like comfortably carry it on an airplane and just like have it there. But they're also short enough that you can read it during a 1-hour flight. So these 4 books are like
reading.
They're 4 books, and then if you can read and digest those, like your awareness of how your brand communicates, especially, I mean, it'll go skyrocketing. You'll be amazed at all the thoughts that'll go whirling through your head after reading those ones. I'd start with the Brand Gap, though. That's probably the one I like the most.
Hang on. So I've got Zag. Is that?
Yeah, Zag.
Yes, the Zag. That's right. Okay, cool. Yes, those are really nice, and you're right, digestible. I call them bathtub books because I read in the bath.
Do you really?
Yeah, it's like the only time. Well,
that is bizarre.
Wait, you don't read in the bath?
No,
man.
No one
who
reads
has
in the
time
bath?
who has time to take a bath?
I'm telling you.
Let alone read in the bath. Wow, man, you're next level. Next level.
Yeah, my wife comes. When I come downstairs, she's like, "You've been away for too long." I'm sorry.
Oh, that's impressive.
I love it. You got to make time for yourself, Cole. Okay.
Man, you're preaching to me. My wife. I wish you guys should have my wife on here for 1 minute just to be like, so she can be like, yeah, he's gonna have a heart attack because he's working himself to death. So yeah, I do need a vacation. I need to get my like work-life balance a little figured out so I can have time for a bath.
Yes, indeed. Well, you should. Maybe that should be your goal for the week.
Really low goals here. I like it. Attainable stuff.
You gotta start small and build up. Okay. Just make sure you add the bubbles, or get yourself a nice bath bomb.
Yeah,
you've
taken it too far.
It makes me feel special. It makes me feel special.
So I'll drop a note of the Marty Neumeyer books in the show notes.
Definitely.
Is there anyone you think we should speak to next on the podcast?
Other than your wife, obviously.
You should speak to Cy more. I'm just thinking of people within the wedding world who, like you could actually get on the podcast. Not like Gary Vaynerchuk, keeping it attainable here.
Let's be realistic.
Cy Moore is the most interesting guy in the wedding world by far. And you get him on the podcast, nudge him in a direction, watch him go, and you'll hear good things.
Yeah. You just recently had him on the Way Up North one, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah,
that was
an interesting guy.
That was one I was looking forward to. I've known Cy for a couple of years, where we've met a few times, and I just admire him so much. And partly entrepreneurial, partly artistically, like he's just like the whole package of him is so interesting. And that's my recommendation.
Cool.
Well, thank you for obviously spending your mornings chatting to us, or your afternoons, I should say, chatting to us. Where can people find information about you, whether that be, Cola or Nordica or Way Up North? Like, plug your social handles.
All the regular places. I don't know. Like, I guess check out colashop.com, and I would start there. I mean, if somebody's listening to this, potentially they've heard of Nordica Photography, which is cool, and we're grateful for that. And potentially they've heard of Way Up North, and that would be cool as well. But I think people get exposed to a lot of they already get exposed to wedding photographers and might look at their sites, and that's something that people are familiar with. And there's enough events out there, and we're all marketing like wild animals to get your attention. So I'm sure that people have seen those websites, but maybe someone hasn't thought about a business like Cola. So maybe it'd be most interesting to start at colashop.com and see where it goes from there. We also got the Instagram handle Cola, Kolla, which felt like an achievement, because getting those short handles is a little bit tricky.
Wow.
Cool. Well, again, thank you very much.
Yeah,
and we hope you have a nice rest of your day.
I'm gonna go have a bath. You've inspired me.
Yes, you reached your goals day one.
Yeah,
right on.
Been good chatting. Thanks.
Thank you very much, guys.
Cool. Catch you later. So, where can people find us, Greg?
They can find us at Cinemate Films on all of the socials.
Whoop, whoop. I guess it's time for the review shout out, right?
Yes.
You got one there?
I've got one on my phone ready.
Already prepared, not edited at all.
The title is Just What I Need, and it's by Lee (PV Films).
Ah.
This podcast series has just been what the doctor ordered, and the topics discussed on each episode have been brilliant. Great guests, great coffee suggestions, great topics. After feeling pretty despondent with things, I started listening to Perspective, and it helped me start feeling more positive about me, my work, and the decisions to go full-time. Often listening on the way to and from weddings or when at home editing. Thank you. No, thank you, Lee.
Yes, that is what I ordered, Lee. Thank you.
Yeah, we really appreciate that. Thanks again.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, hit that subscribe button so you know when the next episode goes online. Please leave a review, because we want to grow this podcast. And if you don't want to do that, totally cool, you're still our best friends. But how about you tell a friend?
It really makes our week when we see a new review in iTunes.
It really does.
Yeah.
And just as we do the outro, Tom J.D. Armstrong comes in.
He's in a squeaky door, just in time. No, it's all right. Until next time.
Enjoy your life.